Hello indie game fans, it's the last big week of releases before things slow down for the end of the year, but we still have some stragglers over the next 2 weeks. But new releases begins with Breath of Death 7, The Beginning Reanimated, a remaster of Breath of Death 7 from 2011, itself being a parody RPG of titles like Breath of Fire and adds plenty of humor to the genre. This is fully rebuilt from the ground up with new visuals, UI, streamlined gameplay, a new soundtrack, and more quality of undead updates. Get it? Since the main character is a skeleton, but the most important addition is the entirely new Dragon Duck mode, which is a new standalone adventure. This is from one half of Zeboyd Games, William Sternberg, who left that company in 2023 in what appears to be an amicable split, now making games under his own studio, Shadow Layer Games, so if you enjoyed their other titles like Cosmic Star Heroine, this might be worth picking up. An awesome looking pixel art roguelite tower defense game is Chrysalis, set in a world where you play as a wisp, tasked with defending your land from dark magic, disease, and death. You possess the ability to control plants and animals, recruiting them to defend your Chrysalis, a powerful entity that, when ready, can cleanse the land of your enemies. This alternates between exploration and defense, where you must strategically build up the plants or towers to deal with waves of enemies. You can actively control a unit, combining it with another to create a powerful new form like a scorpion frog or a frost jelly direwolf, where I do absolutely love the pixel art, so this is of interest. A fun looking and very weird title is Completely Stretchy, a first-person platformer where your limbs can stretch like Mr. Fantastic after an industrial incident, and you must use your newfound stretchiness to help locate Electros which have been scattered around the island. Yes indeed, this is a collectathon-style first-person platformer with a weird and wacky world where swinging through the air, Spider-Man style in first person does look fun. Your main quest involves finding these Electros, which are the little black-coloured spiky creatures in the trailer, since apparently they provide electricity to the island, and in doing so, find out more about why you became blue and stretchy and if you can transform back. There are hidden items and secrets to uncover, 3 regions to explore, unique objectives, and activities such as riding a hoverbike, and looks to have a vibe similar to something like Sludge Life but is its own brand of weird. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. The trouble with doing previews of upcoming games of 2025 with titles that still have a TBA or 2024 release window in December is that you run into situations like I have with Wild Words, having just mentioned it in my upcoming co-op games video, and they went ahead to confirm a release this week. This is a co-op action-adventure title in which you play as cats, escorting and defending a caravan as it makes its way through a dangerous wood. The game is split into 2 phases, day and night, where in the day, you are clearing out the path and gathering resources, but when it turns dark, enemies emerge and you need to fight them off. This has a roguelite structure, so think of it as a branching node map where you can choose which path the caravan goes on, with advantages and disadvantages in terms of risk and reward. There are boss fights as well as progression and upgrades, looking like fun with friends but will be an early access release. A wild looking co-op horror title is KLETKA, a lethal company-like if you will, where you're riding an elevator and descending deeper and deeper underground, where the elevator itself is a living being and you need to feed it, otherwise it will eat you instead. How's that for weird and freaky? When it reaches the floor, the 4 players rush out and scramble to collect both organic and inorganic matter to feed to the elevator, while avoiding anomalies that will kill you, looking grungy, which is in line with other games in this space. Other games begin with 10 Dead Doves, a narrative horror title with a fixed perspective which is set in the Appalachian Mountains. You play as the most pathetic man on earth who teams up with his hiking buddy for one final glorious expedition to search for a mythical place known as the Ant Farm, but when a bird-like creature starts giving him cryptic messages in his dreams, that is when things start to go very wrong, looking weird and unique. We also have the Steam release of Aero 2 after first launching on Xbox, being the sequel to a game from 2017, and is a reaction-based action game with music in which you are trying to follow the essentially note highways and has a combat element in which you are battling against giant monsters, including a
giant enemy crab.
Looking very sleek and very stylish, where I had to swap out the music due to copyright, but do head on over to the Steam page to check out the original trailer. I previewed Anode Heart Layer Null when looking at upcoming games of the month, since I thought that the name sounded familiar, and indeed, this is a spin-off of a monster taming RPG, taking the card battling minigame from that game and fleshing it out into a full RPG experience here. Being a little bit meta, since you are a player in an online server and have to rise through the ranks, being a little Mega Man Battle Network-like and could be neat.
Time to party like it's 1997, or whatever year this nightmare is set in.
A boomer shooter looking game with a twist is Bloodshed, one that has those retro throwback visuals, but with the twist being that this is a Vampire Survivor style title instead. As is the norm for this kind of game, there will be hordes of enemies to battle and hopefully equally powerful weapons and abilities at your disposal, with the game taking the auto shooter concept quite literally, since I believe by default, you automatically fire off your guns but can turn that off for a more classic experience. There are different characters to play as, along with permanent upgrades in between runs, so if Vampire Hunters is anything to go by, there should be an appetite for this sort of game. I did not play the original, but if you did, Castle Doombad is launching on Steam this week, packaged as Classic Edition, a tower defense puzzle title where you deploy minions to defeat heroes attacking your castle, removing all in-app purchases and adding a replayable roguelite mode, with more content to come in free future updates. Here's an interesting one, since if you've been around indie games and defense, strategy, RTS, or even flash games back in the day, you might be familiar with the Creeper World series, where you're fighting off this purple goo thing, but of course, Creeper World IXE looks a lot different, changing this up into a side-scrolling perspective instead of the top-down or more RTS kind of camera angle of their previous games. For the most part, the core gameplay is the same, since you have to blast away at the creeper to push it back, but this time being side-scrolling, things like physics are fully simulated and you have to be concerned with factors like gravity. If left unchecked, the creeper will continuously grow and consume everything in its path, so you need to destroy the emitters first, with the terraforming and physics simulation aspect being the most intriguing part of this new entry and should be something different. And looks like the hidden gem of the week. Japanese developer Kairosoft have been porting their mobile titles to PC, removing all microtransactions and turning it into premium titles, a strategy that has worked for them so far since their games are fundamentally good, with a great pixel art look as well. And while there are too many games to count, Doraemon Dorayaki Shop Story caught my eye, since of course it stars the titular robot cat that people do have a fondness for. I'm not sure if it's an Asian thing, but I grew up watching the cartoon on TV, and while not exactly my favourite character, does have its charm, especially since you're running a sweets shop and is so adorable. A title that might be huge is EXFIL, short for Exfiltration, a military operation meant to covertly access and remove something from an enemy-controlled area, being a, you guessed it, extraction shooter where 4 teams of 8 battle to get the intel and get out. Interestingly, this appears to be leaning more in the Arma direction of being a realistic military simulator with sandbox elements, but at the same time is round-based, so think Rainbow Six Siege, so I have no idea how the two elements will work together. It will have 2 modes at launch, Classic Extraction and Rogue Extraction, with the first being described earlier and the latter where a small group of rogue operatives have to outmaneuver the larger opposing force, but do note that a team of 4 developers is making this, but certainly has potential. A very cute looking exploration 3D platformer is Garden Trills, in which you play as a tiny sparrow that has to cultivate a beautiful garden. As you explore this charming neighborhood, you'll work alongside other birds and get your wings dirty to cultivate the soil and create breathtaking landscapes to soar through. Grow and harvest a variety of magical flowers which will grant you powers to aid in your exploration, where the little bird has to get to high places, jump off and then glide to explore rather than straight up flight, which is an interesting choice. Of course, you can add a personal touch by customizing the outfits of the bird as well as decorating the garden, and it looks like an absolutely chill and wonderful experience. Snowpiercer survival game is the elevator pitch for Heat Death Survival Train, where I'm honestly surprised that someone has not come up with this idea in video game form, since it sounds like a no-brainer, where you're constructing and upgrading a train which acts as your home base, being able to get off and go on foot to gather resources, but there are hostile drones to shoot down as well, looking like a curiosity. Another release that dropped out of nowhere is Ink Inside, a self-styled beat-em-up RPG that appears to have dodgeball action as well, having a hand-drawn look and could be interesting, although I'm not liking their chances based solely on the presentation. You play as Stick, an unfinished doodle, trapped inside a box of notebooks beneath a slowly leaking ceiling, where as the water seeps in, it warps the land and turns friendly doodles into mindless, soggy monsters. Your mission is to uncover lost memories and to save your friends by fighting back the waves of corruption, revealing Stick's genetic memory, which is the shared memory each doodle has with their creator. There are RPG progression elements like new gear, stronger abilities, a party of interesting characters, leveling up, new mechanics and more, and is charming, but the UI looks kind of messy, which is not helped by this trailer, so here's wishing them all the best. One of the biggest releases of the week, ironically, is Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered, games which people absolutely love and are getting the Esper Remastered treatment. Honestly, I did not play the originals, so I have no nostalgia for this, but I'm eager to check it out, since the comparison shots in this trailer shows that the new art is pretty nice. This is about as old school action-adventure platformer as it can get, mixing combat and puzzles with a cool character design, so whether you're familiar or are new to it like me, this should be worth a look.
Has always been.
The developers of LOK Digital reached out many months ago and it is finally here, a puzzle game that kind of looks like a word search title, where these lock creatures have their own language which you need to learn. From the outside, it does look obtuse and random, but I'm sure that the tutorial will explain what is going on, having a simple and minimalist art style that works for this game. It's a week of nostalgia since on top of Doraemon and Legacy of Kain, we also have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, a beat-em-up title coming to us from Digital Eclipse, who have been making video game documentary plus game collections as of late, but this is a full-fledged new title from them. It features the original Power Rangers from Season 1, as well as familiar foes like Goda and Rita Repulsa, having an equally wacky story where future Robo Rita teams up with her past self to vanquish the Power Rangers once and for all. Of course, this follows in the footsteps of games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, taking a classic IP and making a new game. But the concept has been proven to work in the past, such as with the Genesis version of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie The Game. This is a pixel art title that looks good and has gameplay variety, especially in the Dinozord, Megazord and on-vehicle sections, definitely being a nostalgia play, especially for millennials. A game that doesn't really look like my thing is MiSide, a cozy looking simulator title in which you live with your girlfriend, do chores, clean the house and just enjoy spending time together. So far, so simple, right? However, don't be fooled, this is a psychological horror title that delves into the darker aspects of human nature, since our protagonist is trapped in a world of eerie and unsettling experiences. The overly attached girlfriend meme is made real here since she doesn't want you to leave, so despite the cutesy anime look, there's definitely something to this game, with the content warning on the game cautioning against murder scenes, corpses and dismemberment, so they are not playing around. I don't know the guy, but it sure looks like something Super Eyepatch Wolf would be interested in, so if you're a fan of his, do recommend this title since I would love to see his playthrough. Another week, another indie MMO? That was not a sentence I was expecting to say, since MMORPGs are notoriously difficult to maintain and be successful, even for huge developers like Blizzard, but indie developers are going to indie dev and make the games they want to make, with Pantheon Rise of the Fallen looking like a very interesting entry. Of course, the immediate thing that stands out is the art style, looking like a real throwback, which makes sense if they want a larger possible number of players, including those with low-spec machines. They're going for the Guild Wars model of single premium purchase and no ongoing monthly subscription, which is a choice, being a fantasy title with an open world to explore. Interestingly, there are some traversal options like climbing up a rock face, so exploration is more freeform, but at its core, it does kind of look like World of Warcraft but does have some hype around it and could be neat. We also have the release of Puropu Defense Squad, an action tower defense title in which you play as sentient props protecting your extractor from the filthy humans. This is a tower defense title where you are placing down traps to damage and hinder your enemies while also laying into them with your character and their attacks and abilities. The traps can number in the hundreds, so the play area is large and might allow for creative placement, having a cool, weird vibe as well, which does seem to be another running theme this week. The human enemies have a ton of variety, including farmers, policemen, ninjas, and Special Agent 74, so it does have a sense of humor in this wacky game as well. The first thing that came to mind when I saw Ruins to Fortress is Terraria, since this looks like a similar side-scrolling crafting platformer but does have a different art style and setting, this time being the post-apocalypse and has more of an overt PvP element. You begin with nothing and must gather basic resources like wood, stone and food to survive, eventually building up a home base and stronghold on this dangerous abandoned island. Crafting will be essential for construction, tools, and even advanced technology, and where it gets interesting is that you can get attacked by other players and need to fight them off, or conversely, you can go on the offense and assault enemy bases as well to steal resources and equipment. Based on that description, it might have similarities to Rust, and is supposed to be a completely free title as well, which makes sense if they want players, with no mention of monetization so far, so we'll have to wait and see on that aspect. A good-looking title is Stars in the Trash, a narrative-driven platformer that looks like the classic animated movies of old like Lady and the Tramp, but in video game form. It follows the story of Mocha, a spoiled house cat who decides to run away to seek adventure. It looks to play and control like a side-scrolling platformer with some puzzle and adventure game style elements, but it is not a precision platformer by any means. Mocha has to learn to survive out in the world, but with an ominous canon man lurking around that wants to catch you, does have tension as well, looking pretty good and is interesting. This next title is one of the most popular wishlisted releases of the week, but I wanted to share the love and spread the top 10 spots around, so I have put Urban Strife here, an old school turn-based strategy survival RPG set in a zombie apocalypse. You play as a mysterious patient evacuated by the CDC and have been rescued by the kind people of Urban Town Shelter, somewhere in the deep south of the USA, having to become part of the community and even its leader as you rebuild the pillaged camp and bring hope back to the hearts of survivors. In zombie apocalypse fashion, there are no real good guys, so to speak, with every decision that you make being morally grey, and with 3 factions to deal with, has the potential for plenty of drama. Of course, the ever-present threat of zombies is there, which you need to deal with on your scavenging runs to find resources, with factors like ballistic modeling and body part targeting in combat looking strategic. And interestingly, since zombies are numerous and waiting for every one of them to take their turn in a turn-based game can be tedious, the developers have found a way for the entire horde to move together in the same turn. There's a whole base building and survival aspect, since you need to grow food and reinforce your defenses, as well as RPG elements on top of that, looking very ambitious. So if you're not sick of zombie games just yet, do check this out. The news broke recently that this open world RPG with turn-based combat, Wartales, has sold over 1 million copies, which makes the timing of the Skelmar Invasion paid DLC perfect, adding a whole new area to explore where you have to fight off raiders and liberate the land, and looks like a substantial amount of content. We also have the 1.0 release of WizardChess, a silly roguelite tactics title that plays with the premise that chess was invented by silly cosmic wizards. Yep, it is that classic game that we have all come to know and love, but made so weird and interesting, adding procedural generation, randomness, and most importantly, unit variety, since there are more than 50 unique classes of specialized units, each having their own statistics, movement patterns, strengths and weaknesses that you need to learn if you want to defeat the Fey Queen. The developers use the word unhinged to describe their combat, which can be appealing if done right, where you can do roguelite stuff like recruit and upgrade new units, but also sacrifice, trade and gamble away units to create a more powerful build, and looks like it's for fans of the genre. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. From the developer of Atom RPG comes Swordhaven Iron Conspiracy, a classically designed CRPG set in a low fantasy medieval world, in contrast with its more Fallout-inspired post-apocalyptic setting of their previous games. You play as a newcomer to this new land of Nova Draconia, who was handed an artifact of interest by a dying man on your journey here, which will be the catalyst for the adventure of a lifetime. There will be an open, non-linear world to explore filled with NPCs, multi-solution quests, as well as a classless role-playing progression system, offering you the freedom to explore and mold your character, and is a true RPG. Like their earlier game, this looks pretty ambitious, which explains why it's an early access release, planned to last at least until Q4 2025 or even Q3 2026, so they have big plans for this game, but appears to have a substantial amount of content even for this early access launch. A no-brainer pick for the week is The Spirits of the Samurai, a side-scrolling action platformer with 3 playable characters, mainly following Takeshi, a samurai who must defend his village from the invading forces of an Oni and his undead army. However, you will also be able to play as a Kodama, which is some sort of spirit, which is much smaller in size as compared to a human, as well as a little cat, with each of the 3 characters providing gameplay variety. Takeshi is more combat focused, and the same can be said for the Kodama, but where you're fighting spiders but have to run away from zombies, and the highlight is the adorable cat having more platforming and stealth gameplay. The stop motion animation of the characters and enemies makes it look unique and looks like a grimdark title worth a play. I was very interested in Void ever since it was revealed, being a first-person hack-and-slash title where you play as a killing machine created to reshape a world ravaged by plague. You do so by slashing away through enemies, having a variety of abilities to aid along with maniacally swinging your sword, looking to have good action and fun traversal. One thing which stood out to me is that you can jump and dash away up cliffs and castle walls to explore, also being able to jump off and attack enemies from above, looking rather fun and is impressive considering it's from a solo developer. The next entry in the symbol building roguelite with that gambling adjacent factor is Billionaire. Being a form of pachinko game, we are getting and placing triggers on the board, hitting them to earn money or to spawn more balls to get more money and so on, having to draft complementary triggers that ramp up the absolute chaos in this game. If you love big numbers in games like Balatro, this will be of interest, having a cute art style and looks like a hit. I was pleasantly surprised to see this title crop up on the list of new releases, since Industrial Annihilation is from the developers of Planetary Annihilation, an epic-scale real-time strategy game, with this looking to be similar but adding a factory-building automation element as well. I love the art style here, and if the previous games are anything to go by, the RTS action should be fantastic as well, although I do wonder how that will mesh with the factory optimization element, but it looks so good and will be of note. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.